A Suicide Help and Suicide Survivor Guide. Chapter 1. Suicide Guide. Suicide Info 1. When the problems of death seem slighter, easier, than the problems living, that's when people commit suicide. Arthur Schopenhauer. If I cannot give consent to my own death, then whose body is this? Who owns my life? Sue Rodriguez, Globe and Mail, December 5, 1992. It takes far less courage to kill yourself than it takes to make yourself wake up one more time. Judith Rosner, 9 Months in the Life of an Old Maid, 1969. I wanted to give up. Suicidal people don't want to die. They just want to get rid of the pain. Good life, good death. Hemlock Society motto for terminally ill people. The Roman philosopher Seneca said, "If I must suffer without hope of relief, I will depart not through fear of the pain itself but because it will prevent me from living my life fully." Physical pain seems like a justifiable way to kill yourself, but most people who do so aren't in physical pain, they're alone, hopeless, they feel alienated with no place to go but death. In a word, most people who kill themselves are depressed, they've given up on life, lost their spiritual selves, so they feel so bleak that they'd rather die than face another mundane day of mental torture. The means of suicide have a lot to do with the outcome. Most firearms and hanging suicides succeed. Most others do not: poisons, knives, cutting wrists, jumping off bridges, drug overdose, carbon monoxide, etc. This could be one way to keep people from killing themselves: limit the easy availability of guns. Many attempted suicides end in permanent physical injury. A suicide crisis is a dark period where an individual is plagued with thoughts of killing themselves, often to the extent of planning a suicide. People who attempt suicide are often said to have a clinical mental disorder in order to feel that bad, usually depression, manic depression mixed in with alcohol abuse or drug abuse. Some common theories of suicide are: family history, biochemical imbalances, child abuse and neglect, personal and social losses, death of a loved one, physical illness or disability, social isolation, unemployment, money problems. The fact is that people who talk about suicide often kill themselves. It's too serious a topic to joke about. Some warning signs are as follows: previous suicide attempts, depression, giving personal possessions away, sudden peaceful behavior as if all the pressure has been unloaded, talk about suicide, feelings of desperation, hopelessness, or worthlessness. Suicide is largely a white man's phenomena, although many women quietly do it with pills. In general, people kill themselves for 3 reasons. Anger at the world turned on themselves. The pain of life is greater than the pain of letting go. Shame, they dishonored themselves in society. Life is hard, there's no doubt about it. Some people get lucky and get all the breaks, but most of us have to work hard and come up against difficult problems at every turn. I could say just grin and bear it because all life is better than the alternative, nothingness aka death. However, I can't make value judgments. The Bible says suicide is wrong, yet most of us have toyed with the thought now and then. Permanent peace of mind. I feel that if you work hard at anything, things can change in a matter of time. There are many stories of near-suicidal people who stopped themselves and went on to live great lives. You just have to believe, work hard at what you believe in, and don't take it so hard. If you know somebody depressed and near-suicidal, the greatest tip-offs to know if they're contemplating suicide is if they talk about it, possibly withdraw, and if they suddenly feel free and happy, giving material things away and taking care of certain administrative details normally associated with death, like a will. It may be nothing, but it may be that they've made the decision and are now preparing for it. Some ways to deal with a suicidal person are: listen without judging, be a friend. Let him or her get it off their chest. Ask them how they intend to do it so you know how to stop them if need be. If they're in a fragile state, do not leave them. Call the cops. Get them taken to a mental institution. If there's a suicide crisis center in your area, take them there. Make the environment safe. Remove weapons, pills, rope, knives, etc. from the area. Do not challenge them to do it. They just might in order to spite you. Try to get them to agree that you'll help them and they won't kill themselves. Old age is a different story. I saw a man on TV who was a former CEO of a large business who now lost his ability to drive and lived a life of alternating periods of normal memory and blackouts due to Alzheimer's disease. He was a serious man and actively contemplated taking his own life if the quality was compromised to the point that he lost all memory and couldn't remember what he did 15 minutes ago. He's not the only one I encountered that felt like this. I meet another old guy, a former college professor who felt bored with life and felt he had nothing to live for. Plus there are many countless numbers of people who deteriorate health-wise with age, and sometimes the pain and the immobility seems just too unbearable. I'm not here to make value judgments, but at one time, I had severe pain problems due to an injury, and I knew then if I'm ever stuck in a position of chronic pain for the rest of my life, it'll be an easy decision to find peace in death over a life of hell. There are easy and tough ways to take your own life. If you ever make that decision, do it totally on your own, not because someone makes you feel guilty, as I've seen in a case where a husband who cared for a debilitated wife tried to manipulate her to commit suicide. Another case saw a man with a 70-year-old mother and an 18-year-old daughter. He helped with the medical costs for the ill mother, but the dilemma was that if he continued, he wouldn't be able to pay for his daughter's college tuition. Would you want your mother to die in this situation? What would you do? What about assisted suicide, where you get a doctor to help you do it? They put Dr. Kevorkian away for murder, but it's legal in Holland, so the controversy is still there. Doctors are trained to uphold life by the Hippocratic Oath, but to also ease suffering, so there's a conflict there. Some doctors have written articles anonymously where they said they've taken patients' lives who asked for it by giving them large doses of barbiturates or morphine and then perhaps a muscle relaxant that stops breathing. Outwardly, the medical community scorns it, but privately, many doctors support it. If a person wants it and they have a sound mind, why not give it to them? In Holland, they have a certain standard of deterioration, and if a person meets it, the doctor will help him kill himself. One doctor says that if someone wants to commit suicide, talk them through it. See if they really want to do it. A good book on the subject is Final Exit by Derek Humphrey of the Hemlock Society, a pioneer in death studies who helped his own terminally ill wife commit suicide. Some of his other books are Dying with Dignity, Jean's Way. Let Me Die Before I Wake. The Right to Die, Understanding Euthanasia. He cautions that his book is to help terminally ill patients who want to end the misery, not for ordinary people without ill health who are simply depressed. In those cases, you can deal with it and go on, but terminally ill people must have the right and an easy way to die via either lethal overdose or a painless intravenous death machine as advanced by Dr. Kevorkian. There is a drug dosage table in the book Final Exit. Get your legal paperwork in order before you die. Contact the Hemlock Society for help. If you're on any medical support and want to die, simply stop taking treatment. If you want to die quickly because you can't bear the pain, perhaps the best way is a large dose of sleeping pills/barbiturates, then put your head in an airtight small plastic bag and tie or tape it around your neck. You can get the pills in either of three ways. Subtly tell a doctor you want to take your life and ask him to help you by writing out several prescriptions. Don't tell anybody, but quietly get several prescriptions filled and save the pills for the time. If the doctor is prescribing weak dosages of drugs, keep complaining month after month, and within a few months, he should be prescribing the strongest barbiturates out there. Go to several different doctors acting like a new patient, tell them you feel anxious, can't sleep, get several sleeping pill prescriptions and get them filled. Assisting someone commit suicide is illegal in most of the world except the Netherlands. You can always go to the Netherlands, where suicide with the assistance of a doctor is legal. If you plan to help someone do it, or someone is helping you, make sure they're actually not there physically when it's done. Leave a note and video statement saying you're doing it alone of your own free will to protect them. Another way is to attach a hose from the tailpipe of your running car to the front and sit there while the carbon monoxide fumes kill you. Cyanide, also called prussic acid, works. You can buy it at chemical supply stores. A relatively easy way in the northern climates is to take a long hike in the woods, take a few sleeping pills when you get tired, fall asleep and die of hypothermia. Starvation is slow and painful. One man took a circular saw to his neck. Try to avoid other physical ways because they could be messy and traumatic for family members who have to clean up. Somebody used insect pesticide. Somebody ate some poisonous mushrooms which killed them quickly. Some people say suicide is selfish because you're only thinking about yourself, not the people you leave behind. The cruelest thing is the impact on the people who loved you. Make yourself so unpleasant while alive that they'll be relieved when you do yourself away. There is a set of books out there called High Risk, Writings on Sex, Death, and Subversion that has some essays on suicide and even a few suicide notes. Suicide info 2. People in intense pain who see no other way to stop it. Most people who commit suicide are depressed. Men attempt suicide much less than women but are more successful at it. The primary characteristics of adolescents or young people who attempt suicide is social isolation and drug abuse. Some people see no other solution to their problems. Others want to draw attention to their personal circumstances. This is called parasuicide. Attempted suicide is a cry for help from a person who is battling some type of inner turmoil. Warning signs of suicidal thoughts are: abuse of drugs or alcohol, adverse life event, changes in eating habits, giving away prized possessions, grief, hoarding of pills, neglect of personal appearance, previous suicide attempt, purchase of a gun, talking about suicide or death, withdrawal from friends and activities, writing notes or poems about death. I've read suicide articles that range the spectrum from get off your wimp ass to you've got a problem, you need a friend and help. I can't write much about it because I'll get in trouble either way. These are a few minor points. Suicide attempts are often a cry for help, manipulative action, sign of the depression, attention getter, victim role, way to test other people's loyalty. You have not given any consideration to the hurt and emotional scars you will leave on the people you leave behind. Some people commit suicide to get back at others, to leave their survivors with intense guilt and emotional trauma. There are plenty of things which can lead a person to consider suicide: unrequited love, severe loneliness, income-related despair, worrying over family members, illness, perceived humiliation. For some things you can do something about, for some things you can't. If you can't change it, accept it. Don't dwell on bad things that happen to you. Everybody dies. It's inevitable. You will get all the death you could ever hope for. Until then, live greatly. Suicide is cop-out from the hard work it takes to live greatly. It robs you of your future potential, like the 1946 movie It's a Wonderful Life showed. Some people use suicide attempts as emotional blackmail to control others, to keep them trying to stop you from doing it. People get so caught up in despair and depression that they blind themselves to a rational perspective of hope that they can make it through to live a better life. It's a lazy way out. Kill yourself rather than work your way out. When you commit suicide, you leave a disaster for someone else to clean up and take care of. It's not an act of courage. You were too cowardly to live. It's the ultimate lack of self-control in your life. It's irrational thinking. In order to overcome a sense of hopelessness, you need to live life one day at a time, moment by moment. All you can do is release your natural energy given by God one day at a time. This earns self-respect and a sense of well-being. Enjoy your gift of life each day and without taking it for granted. Pro-suicide info. All anti-suicide literature tries to throw a guilt trip and shame on the person contemplating it. No one asks to be born. We're all free. Society's norms or religious beliefs were created by other people. Life might be a gift for you, but for some it's a curse. Some people don't really want to be born. A lot of people are born with strikes against them, like minorities, poor people, people with disabilities, people whose biological mother abused herself with drugs, alcohol, etc. Their brain chemistry is off from day one. A person's life should be their own to live or not live as they see fit. Shaming someone merely adds to the problem that many people who choose to end their life have to deal with. Medication and therapy is really a bunch of bull. It's what the person feels in their spirit. Some people are always depressed. It's their nature. People suffer a lot in life. What's the big deal about an individual deciding to end the pain? Who owns a life? The person living it. No one can prove there's a God sentencing you to eternal damnation if you end this gift he gave you. Chapter 2. Suicide Survivor. Suicide survivors. Many people attempt suicide and live. Some feel thankful and get more inspired about their lives. Others continue on as before. There are suicide survivor support groups out there in some areas, but it's not a popular group to belong to because of the stigma involved. There are two different definitions of the term suicide survivor. One is the actual survivor of a suicide. The other is the surviving loved one of someone who has committed suicide. Some suicide survivors are permanently maimed. I've seen two guys who shot themselves in the mouth and lived. There was a girl on a talk show who laid on a railroad track. Her legs were cut off, but she lived. AAP.org, 800-433-9016, brochure Surviving, Coping with Adolescent Depression and Suicide. biologicalunhappiness.com/mental_health/survivor_of_suicide.htm. crisislink.org/program/hope/support_groups.html. focusas.com/suicide.html. forsuicidesurvivors.com groups.yahoo.com/group/survivor-advocates. helppreventsuicide.org/survivor_support_groups.html. inthenozone.com/teen_suicide/who_attempts.html. youngcircle.com. kidshealth.org/parent/emotion/behavior/suicide.html. memorytrees.org/poetry.htm. mind.org.uk/information/fact-sheet/suicide. osis.org, OSIS, the Organization for Attempters and Survivors of Suicide. pequelancenter.org/ppt/suicide_prevention_youth.ppt. powells.com, Book Children of Jonah, Personal Stories by Survivors. roadtohealing.com. sbrc.org. st-matthew.on.ca/bulletin/jeremy/suicide.html. stopasuicide.org/survivor.aspx. suicidal.com/depression links/sos links. suicidesurvivorsupport.org. suicidology.org. survivingsuicide.com/left.htm. survivorsfirst.org/resources.html, 800 suicide. survivorsofsuicide.com. tbo.com/life/judyhill/mgbz6r74zie.html. thefiringline.com/forum/showthread.php?t=73968, suicide attempt survivor sues. tomrobinson.com/radio/survey.htm. worldmagblog.com, David E. Pruitt survived a doctor-assisted suicide attempt. Survivors of Suicide. Suicide Prevention Center. Dayton, Ohio 45401. 513-223-9096. 513-223-4777 hotline. A list of suicide survival websites at blog.feedspot.com/suicide_survival_blogs. afsb.org/livesover-blog. allianceofhope.org/blog. letterstobrianblog.com. livethroughthis.org. mindfulsurvivor.co.uk/tag/suicide. oursideofsuicide.com. survivingafterrorsuicide.com/blog. thegiptofsecond.com/blog. uksobs.org/news.